After 109 days of shooting, the film wrapped with the largest indoor explosion ever created.
Boom!
Filmed in the massive 007 soundstage.
Like most directors want big explosions and lots of bullet hits and fire and you know, as much as he can get.
We have this big explosion in the main hall in the film, and the explosion was like huge.
The biggest indoor explosion on a stage that had ever been done.
It's a real explosion. Nowadays a lot of explosions are computer generated, but that one was, I'm very pleased to say, the real McCoy. We did blow up the set.
On paper it sounded very simple, but it turned out very difficult. The set was built right to the ceiling, and he basically wanted to see, you know, the whole thing blow up.
So from a very early point in the film, the design of the set had to be worked out as to how Bruce would come off the balcony.
We had rockets firing across some wires. We had the whole schmozzle, you know, and it was great to film, and it was a very, very exciting.
This day was an incredible day. For example, we had a lot of extras, Bruce Willis, the actors, firemen, everyone, 12 cameras, a huge explosion, and the extras directed by the first assistant, with incredible guy, with a sifflet, comme on dit, sifflet. With the whistle, yeah. He was directing, because of the explosion of all of that, he was directing the extras with the whistle. It was absolutely incredible to do that.
Bearing in mind the Bond stage had been on fire in the past, I think it was something we were all very nervous about.
As the smoke cleared, principal photography was complete.
This is the last take! Only if you are very good!
But for another element of the crew, thousands of miles away in Los Angeles, California, months of hard work lay ahead. They would combine the live-action elements with pioneering digital effects.
We didn't find in the UK a company of a sufficient size to achieve and produce such an amount of visual effects.
After canvassing special effects houses worldwide, the filmmakers chose James Cameron's Digital Domain, where Mark Stetson would supervise the state-of-the-art visual effects.
Luke really had this movie in his head before I met him. And that was a great pleasure as well as a great challenge.
And we brought the guy of the visual effects of Digital Domain, Mark Stetson. We brought him on the shooting during the entire shooting in London.
Mark is an extremely highly principled and self-regulating human being, you know, and he takes his work very, very seriously. When we were asking Luke questions, you know, on set while we were shooting something, I'd say, well, if you handle it this way, what would happen? Or I'd say, what do you mean when you say you want this to be red rather than black? Or, you know, I'm making that up, but I would watch him sort of look up and run the movie in his head and then give you the straight answer, just like, boom, and that was it. And he could decide, because he had the whole movie in his head, and I was astonished by that.
Actually, it was between going on the Titanic or The Fifth Element. And Jim Cameron's awesome, but I'd had the opportunity to work on a few shows with him prior to that, and I thought, with Luc Besson, I knew, wow, this is going to be a really, like, artsy, creative, different kind of show. So I hadn't even met Mark Stetson before. He joined Digital Domain. We kind of briefly met. He took off for London, and I took off shortly after.
And so they actually came out right at the very beginning and sat down with Luke and with Dan Vale and with the designers and worked out with everybody how it looked.
I started going through all this artwork with Dan Vale, the production designer, and I just was blown away and thought, oh my gosh, what have I been off here? And Luke had storyboarded the cab chase himself with a storyboard artist and said, here you go, Mark, boom, when we started the job. We whittled that down through the rounds of sort of development and what can we afford to do for this movie. discussions into about 65 shots, and started previous in London while we were shooting the sequences with a small team brought over from the States.
So we had a digital New York. One of the big things that was great about it is we had the 24 scale models in the computer, the dimensions of the stage, and we had a little setup where if we did a camera move and we went outside the stage, the screen turned one color, and we're like, oh, okay, we can't shoot that. Or if the buildings turned a certain color, we knew that we had gone beyond our model buildings, and now we were into CG land. So it was great because it was driving the moves we would shoot on stage, and it was helping us to really bid the shots and know what was in it and plan for it.
We've produced folders for every single set have been to be had digitally with texture, with colors. Even most of the things have been designed and drafted as it should have been built. So they had some sort of continuity between our work and their work.
When we first showed Luke the previews, I was very nervous about him sort of perceiving the shot through the crudeness of the image that we were presenting, which is these sort of zebra stripe buildings that were black and white stripes in the miniature area, and then black and red stripes where we got out of the miniature area, with each stripe being a floor height, and the cars just being little blobs flying around in strings and rows. And I was really impressed with Luke when he just looked at the shots, understood what he was seeing because he knew his shots, and then started directing them. Faster, slower, no, turn more abruptly, no, don't give it so much skid, just have him turn very deliberately through that alley. And I just thought, oh my God, he gets it, and this is going to go so great.
Luke was cutting the film and we were shooting the miniatures, so it's quite hard for Luke because we often had to say, we need to know how you're going to cut that scene because we've got to build the CGI or we've got to shoot the miniature. So he often had to leap ahead and cut a scene that perhaps he didn't want to, but he had to because we had to shoot it on stage.
It's a roller coaster. You get these breakthroughs, or you think you're going along really well, and you find there's some technical snafu that can just stall the completion of development for 2-3 months, and you're kind of biting your nails, and you're trying to come up with other solutions, and at the end, you're just like, oh my God, we pulled it off. Somehow you always pull it off.
When you start an effect, it lasts 6 to 9 months. 1 3-second big effect could last 9 months. So you are asked every single week if we are on the right track or not. So at the end of the way, the 3-second visual effect shot that you have seen for 9 months, when it's finished, you have
We'd already shot for 6 months here on the main unit. We then continued and started off to do another 6-month shoot on the miniature photography. Alongside that, they were also building the CGI work as well.
We had a great crew. I asked for Bill Neal as the visual effects DP, and he did a fantastic job. And I was able to keep him in London throughout the shoot so that he was there lighting green screens and shooting plates while Thierry Arbogast and his crew were shooting the movie. So Bill had a clear understanding of what the movie was about, and then brought that back to the miniature shoot. Yeah, I think you'll find my Stetson hat walking around in the city streets if you look close enough. And, it's a fun thing to do, to just sneak little jokes in there.
For the time of when we did it in '97, I think it all holds up really well, and I think a lot of it still holds up now. So it's interesting when you go back and look. It's hard not to be your own worst critic, though.
I'm proud to see that look copied again and again in films that we've seen since.
Now when I look back to a show like Fifth Element, and I said, oh, that was easy. Piece of cake. Well, it wasn't like that when I went on in the beginning.
Finally, after more than 20 years from story to screen, The Fifth Element was completed in time to open the 50th Cannes Film Festival.
Now here we are.
It's the festival of festivals, and I think next to the Oscars, it's the biggest do, isn't it, out?
Never in my life seen nothing like this before. This is beautiful.
The filmmakers had insisted upon secrecy throughout production, and now, at last, they revealed their secrets to the world.
we're very proud to be part of it.
After its star-studded opening celebrations, The Fifth Element exploded onto screens around the globe, becoming the #1 movie in every single territory. The film went on to gross an astonishing $300 million worldwide, thrilling audiences of all ages.
Thank you for reminding me.
Luc Besson may have dreamt up the story while he was still a schoolboy, but he could hardly have imagined a more spectacular and successful ending to his dream than making The Fifth Element.
Very happy experience.
Incredible.
It's just amazing.
Winning the BAFTA was unbelievable.
Told you. Perfect. Real source of pride.
I love it.
It was just a really good experience.
I had a great time.
Thank you.